Hey folks, welcome into the News 12 Now Desk. Thanks for joining us here on this Thursday, October 19th, just after 11 o'clock here on our Thursday morning. We are talking sports here again on Thursday as we normally do. And for that, oh, you gotta give me a second. I gotta get this graphic back up. Hang on. But for that, we are joined by our sports director, Dan Booth, as well as Glascock softball head coach, Johnny Cantrell. So gentlemen, good morning. Coach, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So in case you haven't heard, folks, Glascock is one of our local teams competing in the state playoffs. They are heading back to Columbus for the Elite Eight. Again, Coach, a position you guys are familiar with, made it last year to Columbus. How good does it feel to be going back?
Oh, it feels great. To do it last year, I mean, it was girls obviously excited last year, excited again this year to get back. It takes a lot of hard work to go to Columbus one time with a group. It takes even more to get back. You have to fight complacency and all that stuff. And our girls have stepped up, and we're looking forward to the challenge next week.
Absolutely. And to make it once is tough. To make it twice, especially when you could have that hangover of, oh, we're a good team, we're expected to make it back. That regular season can kind of feel like a drag. How were you guys able to stay focused and grind through a long season like that with some tough competition, I might add? We'll get to that in a little bit, and make it back to this point.
Well, we won the region title for the first time in fast pitch history last year. When we got beat out of Columbus last year, we told them before we walked off the field, we're going to throw everything we can at you next year. So this is not going to be a surprise. And we started making our schedule and circling teams who were in Columbus, like a wish list of who we really wanted to face. And luckily we were able to get a bunch of those. And that's what got us ready. A bunch of tight ball games. But these girls don't blink, and that was the biggest thing is they've stayed the course and they've kept working hard and they've stayed hungry all year, and it's paid off for us so far.
And to kind of that schedule. So the mentality behind, really putting some obstacles in front of your team, just what does it say about the resiliency and just what they were able to absorb throughout the season that helped them get to this point? Because we know that these opportunities are few and far between, and it's clear that you guys are cooking with some gas right now.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is you got to have a strong foundation. And we knew going into this year we were going to have a very strong foundation. We were going to, integrate some younger pieces as well. And during the summer we tried to schedule, tough games during the summer as well going into the season. But you look at, Eastside's going to Columbus, Harlem's going to Columbus, Morgan's going to Columbus. We played South Effingham earlier in the year. Grovetown's still in it. GMC out of our region's going as well. And it was, the challenge for us was first trying to get on the phone with everybody and go, hey, we want to come play you. We knew what we had, coming in, that we were going to be a solid ball club. Iron sharpens iron, and that was kind of our mentality going throughout the year. And the girls they've grinded, tough practices every day. We're, 5 days a week, and they've done a great job.
And I want to reemphasize kind of what you were just alluding to in terms of your schedule, because anytime that a smaller school, has that chip on their shoulder going up against the matchup against a bigger school, you can really learn about where you're at and just that litmus test of kind of what you guys are trying to accomplish, right? So to clarify this again, Grovetown, Morgan County, Vidalia, Thompson, Bryan County, Eastside, Harlem, Morgan County again, Thompson again. You mentioned GMC, Greenbrier is another team. The list goes on, and then obviously playing as well as you guys did in your region tournament and then in your super regional. It's impressive to say the least. And I think one of my coaches always used to tell me, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. All these obstacles in the way are going to really help build you up, right? So what do you feel like you learned about your team that might be, something that maybe you added this year that, maybe that experience of going last year has helped put you guys in the right mindset this time around that maybe can give you guys an edge this time in the Elite Eight?
I think the biggest growth we've seen is resiliency. We're not afraid of a tight ball game anymore. It doesn't bother us. And I'm not saying that it did last year, but we've played in so many one run, two run, three run ball games against really tough teams. And win or lose, we've been right there, to the end. And I think that's been the thing. They don't get nervous late in ball games. They just kind of stay the course and, let it come to them. And that's been, I think, the biggest change in what we've seen this year. And obviously, having great pitching and great defense helps. I told them before the season started, look, your batting averages may not be pretty when this runs over, but you're going to be ready for hopefully what comes next. And they bought into that, and they've worked hard, and we've tried to make adjustments along the way. And, the results, speak for themselves. The credit goes to them. I call practice, but you got to show up with a want to get better every day. And they've done that.
Nick?
Yeah, Coach, when I looked at your schedule, noticed that two of the games you lost against, hang on, I got to pull you back up. Two of the games you lost against Vidalia and GMC, you guys then went or GMI, sorry. You guys then went and beat. You got some revenge on them. So what is it about this team, or what did you learn about this team in those games that gives you confidence going in, like, hey, even if we lose one and we see these guys again, we're going to come out and beat them?
Well, the Vidalia they're really good. And when we went down to their place, we kind of kicked it around a little bit and just didn't step up in a couple spots. And it was something, we talked about after the game. Like, look, we said, this is just the beginning of our tough road. We've got to think ahead on the field, and that's kind of been what we've been building all year. And our senior leadership has done a great job of, pushing that point home. They're talking, communicating more, letting everybody know where the ball needs to go before the play happens. I mean, they're the ones that have made it, take place on the field. So that's been the biggest change. And seeing that type of pitcher from Vidalia is going to Georgia Tech. She is really good. GMC's pitcher, she changes speeds very well, moves the ball around, throws the ball hard. She's a competitor. And, we scored 4 runs in 3 games against them. They put up one against us, but those games were tight all the way through. Those games you can't do anything but get better in those type of environments.
Yeah. When and I said GMC switches to GMI. The military college thing always throws me off with the high school. Yeah. But when you mentioned you guys have played a lot of 1-run, 2-run games. Looking at the Super Regional, you guys won a game 1-0. You won a game 3-0. Didn't allow a run in those games. Is that the identity of your team? Is like, hey, we're going to shut you down. We might not score a lot of runs, but we're shutting you down.
That's kind of been what we've been forced into with the tough pitching we've been seeing, and we've got our rock is in the middle of the field. She's committed to Presbyterian College, Grace Kelly. She's going there. The biggest thing is she throws strikes, pounds the zone. She doesn't give up free bases. And when the ball gets put in play, our defense has been up to the task, pretty much night in, night out. It helps having senior third baseman, having a senior shortstop, senior left fielder. You got a junior in center. They've all been there, done that, and it's when the ball's put in play, we, tend to make them. So that's been the biggest thing. If you don't give people free stuff, they tend, and you don't beat yourself, it helps.
When I look around the Elite Eight here at who's left, and you guys, Lanier, Bowden, Wilcox, ECI, GMI, GMC, it's a lot of teams that were there last year. Yes. So when you look around this Elite Eight and this group of programs who's good year in and year out, what do you see from a competition standpoint?
Consistency and performance. Those guys are there every year. I guess in a lot of ways we're the new kid on the block over the past few years. But a small school like ours, sometimes you're going to have peaks, you're going to have valleys. Some of these bigger schools, they're able to build and build and build. For us, you're 165 kids in the high school, I think is what we have right now. It can be a grind some days. And that's what you see with them is that they are consistent year in, year out. And that's what we're trying to build here every day. And it starts with our younger kids. We have a junior program that's growing. We've got a middle school program that's getting better, and it's feeding us, and the results are, out there for everybody to see. And that's been the biggest thing for us is building from the ground up.
Yeah, this one's kind of a two-parter here. When you see all those programs with all that consistency, and you mentioned you're the new kid on the block, and there can be a lot of emotions that come with that, because whether we like to admit it or not, as athletes, you stand on the field, you see a 17-time state champion across the field from you. It's gonna elicit some emotions, right? How do you?
Well, this
Oh, go ahead.
well this bunch we have now, this group of seniors, their freshman year we went to Gordon Lee. And you've seen what that program has done year in and year out. And, you got to see where you stood there. And then as sophomores, we went to Schley and played a 3-game series, under the old format down there, and took them to 3 games with a very, very young team. And then last year you make it back to Columbus. You have to fight your way through, super regional against some really good teams. And then this year, Schley, 10-inning ball game, 1-0. A 3-0 7-inning game against them, after defeating Towns in the opening game. It's just they're battle tested. I think that's the biggest thing for us, was going through the meat grinder of our schedule and then getting to this point and it not being something new.
When it comes to the playoffs and you're playing so many games in such a short amount of time. Just the super regionals alone, you guys were able to get it done in 3 games, but some teams have had to play 4 in 2 days. That can kind of be a double-edged sword, right? You've got, you get in your groove, but at the same time, you could burn out a little bit just from playing so much. Where do you see your team is at after those 3 games?
After 21 innings in 3 days, we were a little tired yesterday. And a lot of that has to do with the emotion of clinching that spot again. Kids it's flu season and you're dealing with all that as well. But it was yesterday was kind of a lighter day for us, kind of let them kind of get their legs back under them. Seen them in the hallway this morning. They look like they're fired up and ready to go again today. So we'll get back after it. I think we're in a good spot. There's not, we've kind of, I hate to say, we've seen it all, because obviously we haven't seen everybody, but there's some level of comfort knowing you've been through the fire. Stood across the field from, Coach Leverett in Harlem multiple times during the summer and during the season, and that program's been stellar for years, and you held your own. Vade, like we talked about, Eastside, GMC, all these guys who I respect a ton, like the Schley coaches, they do a great job down there. And we have, we've been clipped a couple times, but, prevailed more times than not. And that just shows resiliency and our kids, they keep pushing and keep grinding, and they have each other's backs. And that's a great thing to see. If you got a team that pulls for one another, it makes life easy.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off that, you mentioned you guys have, 160 kids at the high school, a smaller school in a smaller area, an hour plus out of Augusta. It can be difficult to get good competition, but you mentioned you know Coach Lev at Harlem, and you've played against them, and you've got Thompson, you're from Thompson, close by, and so you've got those resources. When you're bumping shoulders with those teams that are a little bit farther away, maybe a little bit bigger, how much does that help you guys?
Oh, it helps tremendously. Because as coaches, if you're playing people, you talk, hey, we're missing something here. You got an idea, and somebody like Coach Leverett, who I talk to on a pretty regular basis, if I've got a kid that I can't quite figure out what's wrong, those guys, they're the guys that I'll call and be like, hey, you got an idea on this, and that type of communication helps a ton. Because obviously we're different classifications. If we're better and we're playing them, it's going to make them better. And in the end of the day, when you make your schedule out, not only do I want to get something from our opponent, but also want to be able to offer something in return, which we've been able to do. And that helps if if you've got a good product to put on the field, people want to play you, especially the bigger, better programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Not exactly a team-oriented question here, or even a season-oriented question. Softball, though, coming back to the Olympics when it returns to LA in 2028. Did you see that? What are your thoughts?
Oh, that's impressive. I didn't know that they had already made that decision.
Yeah, I think it just happened like yesterday or this week maybe. Yeah, it's coming back in 2028.
I've been dealing with room reservations and trying to figure out where we're going to practice, and haven't had much time to watch TV. But that's awesome. I'm glad it's coming back. Be interested to see it with the makeup of that team and who they decide to take. And I'd be curious to see what pitchers they pick up for that
Yeah.
as well. But now, will they allow professional in that?
I
Like
haven't even looked at it. I just saw
I
they
have
were
no
doing.
idea.
I caught it on ESPN this morning and just saw they were
That's
bringing
awesome.
back softball. But yeah, I know growing up I was a lacrosse player, and lacrosse was never in the Olympics, and so I can only imagine what it's like to see your sport actually in the Olympics.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's got to be a cool thing to have it appear there.
Well, because they do like European trips now, I think, for softball as well. They'll go.
Do
I think
they?
it's in Italy. I think was the one that I saw over the summer. If you had anybody, they sent out mass email saying, "Hey, if you got anybody who'd be interested in going to Italy and playing ball, softball during the summer," I think it's a great way to grow the sport. I mean, it's a fast-paced sport. I mean, it's spectator friendly. You're on top of the action. I see why it's growing at the rate that it is, because it's a ton of fun to be a part of each and every day.
Yeah, and I was never around softball much growing up, anything like that. And then like 2 years ago, North Augusta made a run to the state championship, and being out there and covering those, it really is, like you said, fast paced. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of high energy, and it's not baseball, because everybody complains how baseball is slow and boring, and there's pitching changes all the time and all this stuff, and this is just the faster paced baseball. Really started to
and a lot of teams have just one. They may have one main pitcher that they use. Like us, as a smaller single A school, we have our pitcher Grace, who's been in the circle for us, I think, all but 4 games this season. She toes the line and she gets after folks. Like I said, she's going to Presbyterian next year, so we're excited about that. I'm gonna have to get some blue, gear here shortly. So, but we're fired up for her, and we actually our third baseman is actually committed to go to Augusta State as well.
Okay.
So Augusta University, I guess, is the appropriate name now, but it's changed a couple of ways since I moved up this way.
It has. Yep. And
go
ahead, Dan.
Yeah, well, one of the things I love about softball, kind of to you guys' point, is the tactical approach of it. They're really, not to say that baseball doesn't have that, because it does, but playing baseball my whole life, I was a pitcher. And for me,
so was I.
I love the thought process that goes into that. The small ball that is played consistently in softball, whether it's bunting, the hit and runs, stolen bases, making sure that in these split-second decisions that have to happen when you feel the ball, because next thing you know, the batter is going to be on first base or wherever, right? So it's like, if you don't field it cleanly, exactly, right? So if you don't field it cleanly, then you might find yourself in trouble. Exactly. So
you got to catch it. You got to catch and throw in a hurry, and everything happens faster. And speed kills in softball. There's no doubt. If you got a team full of speedsters, I mean, you can wreak havoc on the base pass. And I think it's one of the things I've heard here in recent years is it's been put out there to put in like pitch limits and things like that in softball too. And I keep trying to tell people, look, softball is completely different than baseball. It's different setup, different throw motion. Now it does work and put stress on different parts of the body, back, knee, stuff like that. But if that comes, it'll be very interesting to see how a lot of smaller schools handle that. Because, a lot of times you may have a senior pitcher, you may have a freshman pitcher, and those two things are worlds apart. Not really necessarily their fault. They're just younger. There's an experience gap there that a lot of schools, and they may not even have one. They may have an 8th grader who's coming up the following year and may only have one in the program. It would put a lot of stress on smaller schools.
And kind of when it comes to the experience of having a senior pitcher, right, or someone who's been there, done that, that's a lot of the team that went last year with you guys, everyone talks about, in sports, teams have to take their lumps, quote unquote, when they're developing and they're growing and everything along those lines. How do you feel like last year, put things in perspective for you guys when it comes to, maybe the moment not being too big for you guys? You guys know what that energy and that atmosphere is going to be like in Columbus now, so when you step on the field, the wow factor is still going to be there, but it might not hit you in the face as hard as it did, your first time being in an environment like that.
Well, yeah, the setup there's, it's obviously a little bit different because, you get there, you got designated hitting times, all that stuff kind of shifts away from your normal routine, and have it, day one, it was kind of, you had to get used to something new. And it's change. And a lot of times you never know with younger kids how it's going to affect them. And I thought day 2, we came with a better approach last year. And then we just ran into a team that had already played us, that was the 3rd time we played them in the season. They're from our region, and they just got the better of us that day. You know, I think that they'll be able to kind of pull the younger ones along and be like, look, this is how it's going to go. This is how we have to do it. You know, just it's change, just deal with it, and let's move on. But yeah, being there helps. You know, the year before when we played Schley in 21, we took them to Columbus and walked them around and said, hey, this is where we were trying to get you. The next year we make it, and now we get to come back, and that's a big deal. And it means a ton to them. I mean, they've been smiling, you know, since they're worn out. They're a little tired, but you know, they've been smiling since we wrapped up, and that's a big deal. Just to see them that excited, you know, a day later, you know, they're looking forward to it.
You know, and it's funny because I actually know other coaches who have done something similar about, you know, taking the team, even if you don't make it, to an environment so you can see it, so you can have that goal in mind, you know, kind of the, you know, not necessarily the same thing, but that end of the Super Bowl, you're, you know,
Yes.
standing on the field, watching the confetti fall for the other team, building that motivation, right?
Yeah.
And that drive.
And
So
that has an effect. I mean, you all of that, you know, goals in life are everything. We all know this. And it's, if you show them, hey, this is where it takes place, this is the field you could be standing on. We walked them around the stadium, you know, and it was one of those, you know, how cool would it be to get to play right here for one of those big trophies at the end? So, you know, that's what we're looking forward to, the challenge. You know, it's, you're 2 and done, or, you know, and that's just the way this is, double elimination. So you're gonna have to fight, scratch, claw, and I think we've done that all year. And you know, I'm looking forward to the challenge.
You know, and I think obviously we're still waiting to find out which other one of our area teams are going to be able to make it, because we have a lot of games going on today. Grovetown's 1 win away, Swainsboro's 1 win away. You know, Lakeside's still in it, Washington County's still in it. List goes on. Screven County, Jefferson County, all those different teams.
Screven's my hometown. I grew up in Sylvania, so
that's awesome. You know, and I think one of the interesting things for me is, you know, I know that in Class 1A Division 2, we actually have 3 teams from our area going this year. It's you guys, Washington Wilkes, and Emmanuel County Institute.
Yes.
So what do you know about some of those teams? You know, and I know they're a little bit closer in proximity to you guys than some of the other teams that are going out there this year.
I know Washington Wilkes has an experienced pitcher in the circle. We saw them last year in the Super Regional. When she was junior, she did a great job. Moved the ball around, you know, stuff like that, you know, keeps y'all balanced. And they've had a pretty tough schedule as well. Now ECI, I don't know a ton about ECI this year. I know that they were an older team last year, and they played a tough schedule this year, and it paid off for them. You know, they went head to head with Hawkinsville. I think they had to come back to beat them in a game 3, or, you know, the if game at the end of their Super Regional. So they're well coached. I know Coach Wimberly down there. He does an excellent job, runs a great program. And they're always going to be well coached. So there's somebody you got to look out for every year.
You know, and I think the last thing that I have for now is, you know, I know that, you know, kind of to what I was saying before, you know, you guys had that experience last year. You know, what do you guys need to do to be able to take that next step and really put yourself in a position to not only compete in the Elite Eight, but be a serious contender this year?
I think the biggest thing for us is going to be just consistent approaches at the plate from an offensive standpoint. Hit the ball where it's pitched. Don't try to do too much. You know, any hitter, if they try to get around a pitch, you know, is going to get themselves in trouble. So that's really what we're focusing on. You know, hit the ball where it is, not where you want it to be. And then from a defensive standpoint, just staying on our toes, moving our feet with every pitch, and thinking ahead. And then in circle, keep doing what you've been doing. You know, stay in attack mode all the time. And if there's something she's not comfortable with that we send in, step off, shake off, you know, we'll regroup and go from there. And that's kind of been our MO all year and I do this in baseball as well. If there's a pitch that I call you're not comfortable with, shake me. We'll go to something else. I want you to throw a pitch you believe in. There's nothing worse as a pitcher than having to throw a pitch you don't believe in. And that's kind of, you know, she's earned that right. She's been doing that for a long time, and it doesn't bother me. You know, if it's not a pitch you want to throw, we'll throw something different. And so that's kind of where we are. So we're excited, man. We really are. We're fired up. And it's pretty cool getting to take a small town like this, gets to go back to back years. That's a big deal.
Yeah, that was kind of my last one here, Coach. We probably got 3-4 emails from parents letting us know that you guys were winning, and we thank the parents for those emails, because it is hard sometimes for us to get out to these smaller schools and keep up with everything going on. But it was never a why aren't you covering this thing? It was just, hey, letting you guys know. So we do appreciate it. But what does this community mean, and how great have these parents been for your team?
Oh, they've gone everywhere with us. Since, as soon as these kids come in on the program, our parents are at every ball game, and they go wherever we go. Man, we travel extremely well, especially, like I said, school this small. We draw a big crowd, and we travel well. And if there's ever anything we need, you really don't even have to ask. It's already there. It's awesome the way this community rallies behind their student athletes each and every year. And we had a big contingent last year in Columbus that went with us. Looking forward to another big group going with us this year. And they, it helps if you've got a crowd when you show up down there, especially. So it means a lot to those kids. They see people they know. Aside from their family, we had just fans, schoolmates that came down to support them, and that means everything to them. So I mean, this community's done a great job, and I don't expect anything less out of them. I promise. I mean, these folks are great. They took me in when I came here, 14 years ago, and made me one of their own, and I love it. So
yeah, and we're sure that they're going to be strong down there, showing out for you guys for sure. Dan, did you have anything else for Coach?
No, I mean, once again, Coach, thank you for your time. Good luck, and when exactly is your first game again?
We play on Wednesday, which I think is the
25th, I believe.
Yeah, 25th at 11 o'clock. Yeah, we play on 25th at 11. We're playing Wilcox, who's tough. They were there last year. I think they finished, they finished fourth.
I think they did, yeah. I think they
finished fourth. GMC finished third, and then Lanier, and then ECI last year, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, it's a tough matchup right out of the gate. It's the Elite Eight. They're all tough matchups.
Exactly.
You got to be ready.
There's no free rides on the rest of this journey. So, Coach, we appreciate the time this morning. Coach Johnny Cantrell with the Glascock girls softball team going back to Columbus for the second straight year, hoping to make it farther this time and bring home a state championship. So, gentlemen, appreciate the time this morning. Coach, good luck the rest of the way.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Big thanks again to Coach Johnny Cantrell, head coach of Glascock County softball. Great talk with him, and Dan's going to have more on this coming up later this evening, all throughout the evening on News 12. So be sure to stay tuned for that. That's going to wrap things up for News 12 now. We've got about a half hour till midday if you want to go check that out, and then we'll be back here tomorrow. So thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of the day.